First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this webinar. We've had a lot of very, very, very good feedback over the years regarding the information that Howard presents. Very good information, but also very technical. So we find that we have a lot of people that will actually come back multiple times to view the webinar to get little bits and pieces that they may have missed in the first go around. Definitely feel free to sign up for the webinar in the future. One of the things we also have is we have a webinar that has a lot of this information, not all of it, but a lot of this information, and it's in an on-demand format, and it's actually an AIA accredited webinar. And the website for that is aiaspec.com. So if for whatever reason you have either other people in your office or if you have people that you deal with on the specification side of the business, definitely utilize that aiaspec.com website for that on-demand webinar. Before I do anything else, two things. First thing is, looks like I have some of our brothers and sisters from Flooring Association Northwest on the webinar. I want to welcome all of you and hope that you guys specifically got some good information. We always like to share that with our close neighbors. Second thing is, we're going to be doing a Q&A session here, so if anybody does have any questions, please type them and send them to the email. I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. One thing I will say is that if for some reason I'm not able to get to the questions, I will definitely respond to them directly via email. But on the other side, if you think of something either after the webinar or even, again, directly after the webinar or down the road, please don't hesitate to call me. My phone number is 800-634-9961, and my direct extension is 235. So the bottom line is that we're here to try to help you guys with the situations that you come upon. So definitely utilize the phone number. So first question we have is from Jerry. It says, since the flooding left by Hurricane Harvey, and I'm sorry about that, in the Gulf Coast area, we have many concrete slabs on grade that will have excess moisture. What is the best way to check these slabs prior to installing any type of flooring products? And how long should the installer wait before he needs to start checking the RH in the concrete? So I'll answer your question specifically, and then I'll elaborate a little bit on something else. But the first thing directly is, as far as testing the best way to check the moisture in the slab is going to be relative humidity testing. What you're going to find is that you're going to find that, especially when you're dealing with, at least in my experience, when you're dealing with mitigation types of companies that are coming in to try to dry something out after a quote-unquote disaster, whether it's a broken pipe or a flood, something of this nature, what you're going to find is that the insurance, it seems like that the insurance side of the business that's trying to get the slab from here to here, the way they test acceptability is different than the flooring industry tests acceptability of what's required to put a floor on top of the slab. When I say that, you'll find that a lot of these remediation companies will actually use surface meters to test to get to specific levels that the insurance company will then deem everything dry. The problem is that we run into is you run into the situation that then the flooring installer comes in to try to install, and he does things the way the flooring industry requires him to do to have a warrantable installation, and the two things don't jive. So that's just something to be aware of. But what I would say is that relative humidity testing is going to be the best way to do it. Obviously, I say that, but you can, with most types of flooring, you're going to have the ability to do either relative humidity or calcium chloride testing and have a warrantable installation. And then how long should an installer wait before he needs to start checking the RH in the concrete? I'll typically tell people, especially in a situation like this, if you're going into an area where you have some suspicions, whether it's a new slab and it just hasn't had enough time to dry, or whether it's an old slab in a situation like this, I'll typically tell people, if you're planning on doing 10 tests overall initially, I would just go in and do a couple. And I would go in and do a couple just to see where things are at. And then as time goes on, you can add more sensors to that just to make sure that because you're going through this drying process, that you always have current sensors in the slab to be able to validate the sensors that you previously installed. And so it just helps you to kind of keep that sense of that warm and fuzzy feeling, I say, that everything that you're reading is consistent. So there's definitely, once you have the slab physically dried out from a water standpoint, standing water, there's no reason why you can't put some sensors in there to see where things are at. One of the questions I get a lot about, or asked quite frequently, revolves around thickness of the slab. Obviously, everything that Howard talked about is very depth-specific measurements, and so in order to calculate those very depth-specific measurements, the overall thickness of the slab is. So when you have a slab on grade, there's a few different ways that you can try to establish that. First of all, if you're looking at any kind of slab, new or old, they do make a electronic device out there that you can plug into a smart device, an iPad or an Android device, and it actually goes on top of the concrete, and it sends a signal through that allows it to estimate what the slab thickness is. It's within, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's within about a quarter to half an inch variance as far as the actual thickness of the concrete. So it's very, very effective. The problem is, for most people, it's out of their price range based on how often they would use it. Last I saw, it was between $200 to $2,500 for the device. So then we come back to the real world as far as most people. So you look at new construction. If you're looking at new construction, obviously you have construction documents, you have general contractors. Old construction or existing buildings, there's a lot of times there are established construction or original construction documents that you can look at. Renovations, you have plumbing that gets altered, bathrooms that get installed, where they do trenches. You can look in the trenches and have an idea of what the thickness is. I tell people it's amazing once you realize, or you have it in your head, that you need to know the thickness of the slab, even if you've never had to know it. Once it's a focal point for you and it's in the forefront of your brain, it's amazing when you go out on the job how many different tells there are on that job to see it. Worst case scenario, I have people that are telling me on the job that they'll take a smaller diameter drill bit, they'll drill in a couple of different places in the slab. You don't want to turn the slab into Swiss cheese by any stretch, but drill a couple of holes, take a piece of pliable wire, J-hook, push it down in the hole so that the J is a little bit bigger than the hole. As you push it down, you push it all the way to the bottom. As it goes through, the J springs out. You pull it up until you feel resistance, take a Sharpie and mark it off the surface of the concrete, and as you pull the wire out, you can still kind of see the radius in the wire, you can see where the Sharpie mark's at, and you have the ability to see what the thickness of that slab is. You look at that in a couple of spots. At that point, you've done your due diligence just to make sure there's not, some huge variance from point A to point B. Elevated slabs. A lot of times you'll have penetrations that go through the pan decking. Those holes for the penetrations are usually, I don't want to say substantially, but they are quite a bit bigger than what the actual penetration is. So you have the ability to see on the outside of that hole what kind of profile of the pan decking you're talking about. Or even in a structural slab, you're able to see what the structural thickness of that slab is. So then we go to another question I get, again, revolves around thickness, but it deals with the elevated slabs that are elevated in pan decking. And first thing is, people ask, well, because with pan decking, you have an area that's thinner than other areas. So you have thinner areas and thicker areas. So the question always is, do I calculate the 40% based on the thinner area, or do I do it on the thicker area? So the first thing I have to do when I give this explanation is say that the ASTM standard specifically does not address what we're going to talk about. So with that being said, there's a couple of different ways that I've heard of that things are being done out there. First of all, I have some people that have purchased very inexpensive metal detectors. And the metal detectors work somewhat like wood stud finders for walls to identify where studs are at in the walls. They look very, very close to each other. You can take this metal detector, put it on the surface of the concrete, and you can scan across. The signal on the meter is strong enough that it will usually pick up the top area of the pan decking within the thin portion of the concrete. So as you scan across, you pick up one area, you scan across the other one, you pick up the other high spot, and you can drill right in the middle. And right in the middle is where the thickest portion of that slab is going to be. Calculate 40% of what that is. The other option that people do is you'll see them take smaller diameter drill bits, and they'll try to identify where they're at within that valley of that pan decking and get that deepest section, measuring and calculating 40% based on whatever that thickness is. Once you have one, you can measure off of that from center to center. It tends to take a little bit more time, but you can definitely do that. So it looks like I don't have any other questions. Again, my name, Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, and my direct extension is 235. If you have any questions down the road, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks, and have a great day.